Hello, everyone, and welcome back after a long hiatus. 6 months later, but that which is dead may never die. So here we are again, and this time speaking about an absolute classic. We had to dig deep into the vaults and come back out with The Godfather. I think that was a very solid way to be able to re-inceptualize our podcast, and hopefully we can describe as a more consistent episode run than before. We keep saying that, but this time we
Exactly.
Yeah, we said we'd do more than one episode this year, and here we are once again with Matt Metro and Hannah Metro.
Hello.
Pretty much the seminal group. I'm really happy to be back. Sorry if I'm taking an extra long time here introducing, but it honestly has been such a long time that I think it's important to grease the wheels back with a little interpersonality. I'm glad that we managed to be able to get the whole crew back together, especially because, Matt, you've never seen this movie.
This was my first time.
Yeah.
Popped my Godfather cherry today.
Yuck.
Hannah?
No good?
This was a movie near and dear to your Pop-Pop's heart, right?
Yes, this is one of my grandfather's favorite movies.
Yes. No one told me about this movie when I was young.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I think that my father might have seen it when he was younger, but I don't know. I don't think he ever went out of his way to show it to me. This was one of those situations where, when IMDb was still a young website and they were doing the whole top 250 movies, I was like, okay, well, I'm a sophomore in high school. I should try to go as much as these as I possibly can. LimeWire, take it away.
Oh, wow. So you saw this movie like a decade? More than a decade
Oh,
ago?
yes.
Oh,
And I
yeah.
watched it a ton when I first saw it. It was...
Oh.
Yeah, so we'll go into my own personal history on this, but Matt, first impressions on what can only be considered not a footprint, an entire footprint on America's culture.
Yeah, apparently. It is really like 1,000 slaps in the face going through the film of like, here's a meme that's still popular today. Here's a clip that's still, what do you call it? An homage. When somebody's homage this. We probably watched a Family Guy episode that had at least one part of that movie within the past week without even like realizing it.
Oh yeah, Seth MacFarlane only made Family Guy so he could make animated shorts about The Godfather. And he did that all within the first four seasons, and then he stopped caring about the show. You can very clearly tell.
Yeah, I really feel like until today, I was maybe a little naive in my representing myself as a cinephile. I feel like now I can truly do so. Before, if anybody ever asked me, well, what do you think of The Godfather, I feel like kind of a loser, really.
Yeah, you can't call yourself
And
a cinephile
IMDb
and
would
like,
agree
"I've never
with
seen
you
The
because it
Godfather."
is one of the top 5 movies for like the past 25 years.
And it holds up very
Oh
well.
my gosh.
Yeah,
Does it?
I would say what did it say, 72 is when this?
It's 1972.
72. For as old as it is, and I've not seen very many movies prior to the 70s that I can think of, but it holds up. Wow.
Very well.
Like 95% of it, and we can get to the 5% as we like get into it, but we watched the first hour in a chunk, felt like about a half hour, and we watched the rest, the following 2, which maybe felt like an hour. It flew by. I couldn't believe it. It didn't move as slow as I can imagine a movie being made in the 70s.
No,
should move.
especially considering the subject matter. I feel like after The Godfather, everybody wants to extend the concept of The Godfather, so they make mob movies more ponderous, more long-winded for no reason.
Yep.
And well, not for no reason. It's just because you can't ever hit lightning twice like that. So it's like the movie did such a good job of going through its paces so quickly. Like 180 minutes, right, means that this is essentially a 10-episode, nearly 20-minute series. Like we pretty much just watch a little mini series of 10 episodes of just one, in one situation.
Yeah.
And oh my gosh, like the pace feels like that. Like the pace, even though this movie is from the 70s, it almost feels like they made it with like a Netflix show mentality of like, we have to hit enough information within 18 minutes, but we can never be redundant. We always have to keep going in with new information, new intrigues, and new conceptions. You know, all it can ever do is be a snowball upon itself, but it never rolls backwards. And man, that's what I feel always makes it go by so quickly.
Yeah.
I mean, at this point, I have watched this movie at least a dozen times in my life, which means that I've watched it at least 30 hours.
Yeah.
You know, I've watched it. And that's just part one. You know, like because I usually watch number one and then I watch number two. You know, soon after.
I'm a little upset that we aren't able to, like, just in the sense of like we don't have enough time. But man, what a cliffhanger! Like, I know you haven't watched it yet, but I'm getting like major Paul Atreides vibes from Michael Corleone becoming the new Godfather. Paul Atreides is the main character in Dune. And there's a lot of parallels. Now I'm starting to wonder: is this movie based off a book, a novel?
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
The book is, I believe, a decade younger.
Prior to it.
Yeah.
Okay, that's right around when Frank Herbert wrote Dune. So now I'm very curious. Like if there are any borrowings or homages there. But...
Oh yeah, I mean, the family dynamics that the Corleones have I feel have been attempted to be represented throughout so many different genres. Like even something you wouldn't consider like Arrested Development like has a very Godfather-esque kind of setup and stuff, but all of it just a completely different lens, just from the comedy of it. But I mean, everything that they're doing is just as serious. You know, the moving of land and all of their businesses and stuff. Like, it doesn't take too much to be able to transplant such a solid foundation to pretty much anything.
There's a lot of reference to the family in that show too.
Yeah, that's true. Yep. And that there's always money in the banana stand. Yep.
There's always money.
I've literally never thought of Arrested Development in a different lens. And now
because you never watched The Godfather. Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah, it's why
I apologize.
And that's why I'm very excited. Spoilers for our audience when I get to watch 2001: A Space Odyssey, because I feel it's going to be exactly the same kind of glass-shattering situation. Because, I mean, I've seen maybe 20 minutes of that movie just through the basic clips, because everyone on the internet is nice enough to never spoil that movie all the way through. I mean, unless you're looking for it. Unless
it's almost impossible.
You can't really.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's like even nobody really even tries to go for it. So like because of that, all I know, is that rogue AI. Okay, that's that's
and that's even not even. It's like just a part of it.
It's a sliver. Yeah.
Really? Yeah.
It's a memorable. Yeah, it'll be a very different experience. It won't be the same as sitting down and watching The Godfather, but I do think that you will connect to a lot of other like derivative versions of each.
Kind of like when we watched Alien. Because I remember you saying like, oh my
gosh, yeah. I mean, it was an absolute... Yeah, like literally my reality feels cheaper for watching those kind of movies because everything feels derivative.
This feels original?
Yeah, that's the problem really, is the fact that you really do feel the age and like the cascade of like all of those representations after the fact, because I mean at this point we're 3-4 adults from when that movie was first created. It's like we had already like four people's worth of creative understandings and like homages and deconstructions and just parodies, like everything under the sun that could be done with with that thing has been done, and you've seen it except the original, which
it was astounding. The number of and it's not even just in like film. I've seen homages that I now am like recognizing from video games. I think I've heard the name Luca Brasi in rap songs. I'm almost positive that I have.
Oh, you have, for sure.
Probably.
And yeah, just like kicking myself still a little bit,
Well, I'm glad. I mean, there's nothing nicer than seeing something that doesn't end up being overrated, which sometimes can happen, especially when something is as aged as this, because this movie does not require any special effects, right? I mean, it's so down to earth in terms of all of its cinematography, everything that they do in terms of trying to showcase and convey the story at hand doesn't really require anything special per se. It just really requires the actors giving it their all, everyone being earnest, and the script being tight. I mean, I can literally in my mind consider maybe like 3 lines that were straight just lore, like a light lore dump, you know. And they were all at the very beginning given by Michael to Michelle Keaton's character, because she's supposed to be the outside looking in kind of situation, just like we are, right? And the moment those are gone, everything else, like, okay, you got it? Yeah, these people are in the mafia. Okay, you understand?
Is that clear?
Yeah.
Yeah, just the beginning of, like, I'm not sure, because I wasn't alive then, what the sort of cultural milieu was like for people in the early 70s in regards to film. But what a strong statement on your movie to start it out with the description of a violent assault on a woman.
On someone's daughter.
Yeah, on
who's
someone's
describing
daughter.
it.
Yeah.
And not only that, but it's doing so as a means to be able to request a murder to occur.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very strong.
Well, I mean, that's what's striking to me about the movie, because I saw this movie when I was still mostly interested in cartoons. You know, movies like this they were not interesting to me the first few times I saw this movie. And I remember just, like, getting sucked into it and sitting down, like, as a kid. It's that striking that even somebody who needs, like, colors and a lot of voices and stuff like that is still pulled into that experience.
Do you remember how old you were when you first took it seriously?
I don't know how old I was. I was too young to be watching the movie, probably.
Right on.
But what made me take it seriously is I remember, like, catching part of the movie, because this still gets me, is it's the scene, I forget what their sister's name is, but it's the scene where Carlo beats their sister, like, with a belt, and she's, you know, they leave the scene implied. She runs into the bathroom or whatever room that is, and you can hear the belt and the screaming. That's, like, my earliest memory of this movie, is catching that scene as a kid and being horrified by it, but also, like, having, like, my family's, like, a super nice family, but I had protective older brothers, and I remember even as a little kid watching the movie, like, oh, her brother's gonna kill him, was my thinking.
Yeah, I was surprised it took so long. It took 3 hours to kill that guy before they finally got around to it.
And they let you think he's gonna get away with it, too.
Yeah. So the subtle nuances in the conversations between Michael and the rest of the gang, and then Don before he dies. There's, like, this special tension that I think you only get in, like, really good thrillers that is somehow present in this otherwise, like, there's no tricks being played in the background, is what I feel like. They're not using music to mess with you or anything. They're not using cinematography to, like, sway your emotions. They're just using like a lot of great A-list talent, and B, which I'm sure is just Francis Ford Coppola's amazing abilities. Like, I feel like I watched like a real story with no, like, Hollywood bullshit sprinkled on it or in it or around it, you know?
Yeah, and you do a lot. I've noticed with this watch through that you do a lot of you have to do a lot of what the characters are doing, which I appreciate. Like, you determine if you trust characters based on who's in their network and who's in their ring and who they're talking to, and little subtle conversations between different characters that reference them. Like, you're having the same experience as the main characters, and I always appreciate that.
The amount of just body language work that is done in the movie, also with further and further viewings, really exemplifies how much intuitiveness there was amongst the cast too, because with as great as all the lines were, I mean, it was really watching Sonny like hold himself back every single time that you see that he just wanted to beat somebody's ass, and then without having to have such big exposition on his backstory or anything like that, you can already see what kind of, semi-reformed hothead he would be, and how within the movie, slowly but surely, the enemies of the Corleones use that against him, and he's not. It's nice because he's not. It's not like he's blind to his own shortcomings in that way. But even then, they still get him. Yeah, I mean, watching Michael's eyes get colder and colder as the movie goes on. Like every single time when they're in the wedding, he's got such soft eyes when he's just sitting there with Kate and talking about his family, and then he has to get real cold when he's talking about Luca Brasi and his dad's dealing, and slowly but surely he just stays stuck in that mode after, which I can only imagine after his first wife dies. He's just like, well, this life is serious.
Yeah.
Yeah, wait, so he never married that first lady first? Before he left?
Kate? No, he never married Kate. They
were
were together. Remember, it was a very, he wasn't supposed to go off to another country. It was just supposed to be a meeting.
Yeah.
But...
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's really so, and maybe you guys can talk me out of this, because my one bone, I think, that I really have to pick with the movie is Apollonia.
Mm-hmm.
Why?
Why what?
Why that whole... It seems so inconsequential to everything else that happens in the film. I guess I appreciate it for that. At least there's something there where he's in Italy. There's some meat on the story there, but I mean, she had about 8 lines of dialogue totaling all the scenes together, and then they get married. By the way, before there's any dialogue spoken between them on screen, and then there's a brief sex scene, another little 2 scenes. She gets blown up, and then
I think part of it to keep in mind is the potential blank check that's on Michael's time in Italy, and they reference it a few times.
He doesn't know when he's gonna
get
back.
Yep, and he asks a couple times any word on, he's waiting it out. So I think a big part of that storyline is to give credit to at some point he resolves to moving his life forward as opposed to just keeping it on hold while he's there, which I imagine is torture.
Sure.
Yeah. On top of just giving credit to how long he's been there, it's it's not like he was just gone to Italy for a month or 2. He was there for a whole 2 years, 3 years, and it's...
Yeah, because he's speaking her language before she dies.
Yeah, and his Italian seems to be a little crap before he moves.
Yep. I also sometimes, now, this is not something that I would have ever picked up the first time watching it, because I just, it's just really, really hard to introspect like that without having layers of views. But now I wonder if he does that rush toward Apollonia in order to be able to keep himself from wanting Kate anymore, right? He leaves New York, and now he's essentially part of the family. He's going to be part of this business forever now, and he understood that. He told his dad, "I'm with you in the hospital," with the double entendre of in the moment and in the family. And I would imagine that given that, he probably wanted to not only make a new break and take this, what I can only imagine in his mind is a complete civilian, off of the table for him, but also be able to maybe kind of put himself back into his own roots in terms of that. Because if he took back a Sicilian wife back to New York, right, and they had the exact same kind of situations, Apollonia would not be asking those questions about what happened to...
She's more suited to a mob wife.
Yeah, she understands the fact that all of the men in her village have died because of vendettas. All right, she's not about to ask her husband what happened to the wife beating, to his wife beating
Brother-in-law.
It's gonna be
brother-in-law.
like that.
Yeah, exactly. I can only imagine that is what was going through Michael's head in that time. Aside from just the obvious, like they said, he was struck by lightning. You know, like who knows? You know how much. I mean, Michael always seemed like such a cold person, so I would say like it's probably like a 70-30 situation. You know? Like while he's still in Italy, he's still a young man. He's not like he's killed two people, but he killed them because he needed to end the situation that was happening to save his father's life. Like he is not a bloodthirsty person. You know, like.
Well, and also, I mean, he's there for a really long time. He has no family. He's made, a couple of friends? Like, he's probably lonely, too.
Yeah. He wants to ingratiate himself somehow. This girl is of a family who's well established, in this particular village.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean...
There's no follow-up on that, was there? Like, Apollonia never got any justice. Any vengeance that we were aware of, right?
Yeah, I mean, you would have to imagine the implication is that Barzini's people are the ones that ordered that.
It was from the families.
Yeah.
He was warned that they knew he was there.
Mhm.
So, and he said it at the end of the movie. He didn't say her by name, but he said, "I'm tying up all the loose ends for everything that's happened," basically.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because that guy, that main henchman, he betrayed him, and I've always inferred that it was because somebody from New York is eventually wormed their way there and like paid them to be able to,
Right.
Right.
Okay.
That's always been my take on it. I've never read the Godfather novel, so I don't know if perhaps Apollonia has a bigger role within the novel itself. It'd be great to find out, but
It'd be interesting.
yeah, at this point it just seems like she's unfortunately a plot device. A plot device to be able to transition. She's like a liminal space for Michael in that spot, because her death is what makes him really cold. He comes back from Italy and he's hyper transactional. It's like, Kate, I need you to be my wife because I need some kids, all right? Please get in the car.
He's ready to protect her, too. He's like, do not ask about my business. He's ready to keep her as far away from it as possible.
Yeah, he is no longer nonchalant about anything because he understands the danger that being casual about things can have now.
Maybe that's like a lesson that like you gotta learn as becoming like the like you have to lose some things before you're able to protect the family.
That's all that Godfather
It's
Part
like
2
his
is
coming
about.
of age thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see that. One of the things I thought was lacking, for me personally, not the movie was lacking, was a lack of getting to see Pacino like as the Pacino that I know him.
Right.
Like the Serpico, the screaming.
That man doesn't exist yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's not. It's like it took me a second just to realize that it was Pacino. I knew he was in the film.
Yeah.
But
he's the Godfather, right?
It's just shocking. It was the same thing with Robert Duvall. It was like, what? How are you 30 years old with hair? I've never seen that
That's
ever.
a new thing.
You were young?
Yeah. How did this?
Timed at this? Let me out.
Yeah. So it was like seeing a whole different Pacino, and very unique. Not the Pacino that I have known.
No, this Pacino doesn't have one rasp in his voice.
Yeah. Yeah, no.
He's got a very soft, cold voice to him, and this very, very breathy tone kind of situation.
Yeah. Yeah, he only shouts once, I think, in the whole movie. And I got excited when it happened. So that's Pacino, But yeah. I did have one more question about the Michael getting his face absolutely broken.
Yeah.
Like, is that what happens?
He did.
Is that like he's got this handkerchief, and that's like, is that because his jaw's fucked up?
I think so. I mean, Fredo, when they get to Las Vegas, he makes mention of the fact that the doctor did a really good job on his face. So that McCluskey guy must have really just
fuck.
fucked him
Yeah.
up. But I mean, it makes sense. I mean, he literally had him held
Yeah.
and then just punched down upon. Like, that has to crack something on here,
Oh,
you
yeah.
know? Like,
Yeah, he had that shiner for months. He literally.
I mean, it was
like-
a whole half another face,
Yeah,
you know?
it was-
Like,
It was
I noticed-
some Harvey
he was
Dent
almost
shit.
carrying his little brother around kind of situation, you know? Like,
Even later, like his face was like sunken and more darkened.
Mhm.
You know, looked like just the way it healed.
yeah.
Yeah.
It was a good means of being able to tell time as the movie was going forward, is seeing the bruising and stuff
Yeah.
simmer down,
Mhm.
because it took a long time. I mean, he was still bruised in his wedding day.
Yeah. That, fortunately or not, I guess fortunately, because it's like stood the test of time, but they like really do not mess around with giving you too much to know that time has passed. And the film takes a lot of liberties in moving it right along. We're still moving right
A
along.
Very
whole
fast.
decade went by
You have to
within
keep up.
3 hours,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, and it's weird to see an epic like this story with the perfect pacing, near perfect pacing. Most
Well, it was
epics,
number 1 for 15 years straight.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah,
That's why it's still a huge deal.
Yeah, I mean, it literally is the miniseries before miniseries were a thing. Like, you genuinely can stop this movie every 20 minutes and you pretty much have watched an episode of something, you know? And
Oh yeah.
yeah, it's unbelievably inspiring. I mean, like, how, like, I wonder, yeah, like, what were the inspirations for The Godfather? You know, like, I know that there have been other mobster movies prior to. I mean, I know this isn't the first one, but every other one before this one seems far more cartoony in its tropes and its handlings than this one. Like, this one feels closer to a Netflix series, documentary-ish kind of, you know.
It does.
yeah. Is there like, could we sort of pick out if we tried, like, hero's journey type stuff that like really helped make it what it is? Like,
Oh, well, the hero's journey is, yeah, I mean, Michael encapsulates the entirety of the hero's
Right.
journey, right? I mean, like, he comes back into the fold,
yeah,
but he only comes back just to visit. Something happens which causes him to have to come in. You
Yeah.
know, he initially rejects the call. He says it outright. He wants to reject the call.
yeah,
But yeah, extenuating circumstances cause him to come back in, and when he comes back in hard. You know,
yeah, into the underworld and back out,
hmm
coming back from Italy with new power.
Yep, exactly. A whole new understanding and a whole new set of loss too, because now his brother isn't there anymore.
Right.
He no longer has, like, because I would imagine that as Michael, right, being the youngest son, right, he always felt that distance of being like, well, it's not my responsibility, and I certainly am never gonna want to step on Sonny's toes in terms of
Oh,
wanting
yeah.
to be like the Godfather, you know what I mean, like over my brother. Are you kidding me? You know, like.
Right.
No, like, I'll help. Like, I want him to be stable. I don't want anybody to ever get hurt that I love. You know, so if you need me, call me. But like the fact that I would imagine that it never crossed his mind. Just like Vito said, like, I always knew Santino would have to go through this. Like, in, you know, like this, like, even like, because I would imagine that Santino, even as a little boy, was a hothead. So his father's like, he's probably gonna end up having to do some dirt at some point like that. Like, he just doesn't seem to be the type to want to do, you know, otherwise in that way.
I wonder if that kind of explains Sonny's character being hot-headed, just, you know, like being the oldest son, having the pressure to fill those shoes.
I don't
Like, I'm
doubt
gonna
it.
be a tough guy, you know, I can do this, it's not a problem.
Having the shadow that is Vito Corleone be, you know, your father, I can only imagine would make it be very difficult to not want to be assertive, you know what I mean?
Oh,
Because I
yeah.
would imagine that Sonny doesn't want to ever seem stupid, right? Like, he always wants to seem like he's trying to do right by something, and sometimes he gets carried away. But it's not because he gets carried away, because, you know, their whole mantra is it's strictly business, you know, like things shouldn't be getting personal like that because then I'm messing up. I would imagine that at this point in his life, he's internalized that well enough. but his personality gets away from him in that way.
Well, and he gets like he has a strong. I think like Sonny being hot-headed, his most redeeming quality is sense of responsibility to his family. Is usually if he gets hot-headed, it's about vengeance or protection or something like that.
Yeah, he isn't petty about things. I mean, like he isn't out there looking for problems just to have them, which is, you know, it's great that they were able to have the hothead character be that way. Like there's no sympathy lost for, you know, for his being in that. Like they don't, the movie never makes it one-sided as to, you know, oh well, we're making Michael the protagonist, so we're giving him all the good qualities. You know, like it's almost as though as time goes on, Michael has to absorb all of the people that have died and have essentially gone away, you know,
Pick up
into
their
himself.
qualities, yeah.
Yep, exactly, and figure out what would they do at this moment, and how can I do it better? Like, how can I temper what they would think is the right move at that point? Like, because the only way he was able to know that Sal was the traitor at the end is because, you know, Vito kept telling that thing. It's like, before he dies,
Whoever
like,
comes to you.
whoever comes to you. That's the one that
That's
does
the
it.
guy.
Yeah,
They're the
that's the guy, yeah.
Yeah, and, yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, like Michael seems smart at the moment because he's the one that pulls the order at the end. But that was a situation that happened that was a bygone conclusion from the past John, which now he just happens to be carrying out, and then very wisely he absorbs the responsibility and the accolade that comes with the decision, right? Like, yeah, we've managed to dodge that bullet. Yep, see, I told you he was the guy, and I'm your godfather. I know exactly, you know.
Right.
So you want to be on my side. Like I not only do I not want to have to do that to you, you know, I want to be able to catch the guy who might do that to you. Like, that's the thing. It's like, that's why I love the first scene, is because it really encapsulates what, in the best of all possible worlds, the mafia would like to be, right? It's like, you know, this guy comes, there's an injustice, you know, that goes outside, like that is extrajudicial, and because of that, this individual who is an upstanding citizen, you know, forgoes a favor for a dark favor, and we're able to climb ourselves in that way.
Yep.
You know, and all they ask for is respect. You know, in
friendship.
in friendship, exactly. Yeah. When is the last time I came over for coffee? You know.
Yeah, it's the favor exchange is one thing that struck me again at the beginning of that movie. Is it's like it's a constant business of relationships and of exchange of favors. It's like we do these things, and that way we've got all these people in our corner when we need to go do something big.
Yeah, you know, one gripe that I've always had about this movie is the fact that baker man who helps out Michael,
Enzo,
you know,
yeah.
in the hospital, I never see how he comes up from that, you know, absolute baller move that he did, you know.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe they would have thought it was a little too fan servicey or like too, like, you know, slotting in things, you know, to A to B everything about the movie, but it always really bugged me because you'd imagine that, like, you know, because he's like, for your father, you know, it's like, I'll stay here, like, you know, like, if you need any extra help, like, I'll be here, you know, like goddamn, like, that's a really big deal, especially considering that guy, for all intents and purposes, is probably a civilian. He's just coming through because, just like with the Undertaker, he had a really big favor to ask, you know, and it got done probably.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
You know.
Day off, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
What a great turnaround for that character, though, Enzo, I think, because originally when his case is being made, it's like, we want him to get to stay in this country, and I want him to be able to marry my daughter like they both want. So that's, his life is made in that exchange.
That's true.
And to pay for it, he got to basically save the Godfather's life.
That's very true. That's very true.
Which is great. Like, they're even Steven, you know?
Yeah. No, that's oh my god, that's so true. I never really considered the fact that he's actually coming by to say thank you for the favor that's already been done. Like,
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
and then it goes full cycle, just like all the other favors do all
Yeah,
the
exactly.
time.
Yeah, and maybe and the day may never come when you need another one, and we're here for you in that way. And honestly, you need everybody at the end of the day. It's really what it seems like. You never know when you might need an undertaker who is going to take your case like this, and they need you to fix up your son because he's all messed up because of that, because they butchered your boy. Massacred your
Look
boy.
how they
Yeah,
massacred
they
my
massacred
boy.
your boy.
It's unreal that is a popular meme 50 years later.
That still gets
face,
said
man.
as a joke
It's
all the time.
Yeah.
It fucking works.
Dude,
it's amazing.
I had a developer on one of my teams that his favorite emoji in Teams was this this messed up little devil emoji that he used all the time. And Teams updated all their emojis and it looked stupid. And that's what he said to me. He said, look how they massacred my boy.
IT team, I want you to use all your skill and all your powers to make this emoji.
I've used that meme
It's so
before.
usable, yeah.
With the no having seen the movie before.
Right,
Not
yeah.
having seen the movie before I've used that meme.
No have seen the movie.
No have seen
Yeah.
know where it come from.
Me no scene.
So you guys have seen this movie plenty of times.
Yes.
Yeah.
What's something that you got, if you did, that on this watch through that you maybe hadn't before, or a new thing, or just a different insight?
I'll go first. Oh, you want to go first?
You can go. I'm ready.
How many times that Johnny Fontaine character appeared sprinkled throughout the movie? I never really looked for him, but I've at this point I've seen the movie enough that I can have a wandering eye in terms of things more. And the fact that he appears in Vegas and he's all over the place, and it never registers to me when Michael goes over to Las Vegas and with a brand new set of cadres no, you're coming here and you're doing five shows from now on, And I mean, you understand,
Yep.
Yeah, no, of course I do. What?
Absolutely,
Are
you're
you
doing
kidding me?
fine.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
It's a good friend to have in your pocket.
No, seriously, yeah.
And again, the weight of the favors. We made your career, so
Yeah,
you
exactly.
help us now with what we gave you.
Yeah, I mean, you can only hope that everything's paying off with interest, right? It's we're gonna help. I mean, that's another beautiful thing I find is the fact that within the arc, the character profile that they give for Vito Corleone, right? He's an old man at this point, so you don't get to see his exploits when he's a young man. All you get is the inferences prior to. And the inference is always he goes in with a heavy bag when he comes and asks for the favor the first time. $10,000 check to get get Fontaine out of the contract.
Yep.
Oh, that didn't work? All right, then I'm gonna put a pistol to your head, and then you're gonna give me a check for $1,000. All right?
You did this.
Yeah.
I ask for favors one time.
Yeah. Don never asked for a favor the second time when the first one's been rejected. And it's so interesting how that kind of modality can foster so much love when you're the recipient of that, of it. I can imagine. I can easily imagine how one builds a full-on militia of people behind that snowball effect of doing that.
Well, the favors he gives are life-changing, and he gives them on good faith. He's not you have to pay me for this right now. He's we're gonna do this for you, and we're friends now. So, he probably has tons of, unrepaid favors. People kiss his hands all the time because they're grateful to him for, frequently, their lives.
It's
So
a sign of respect.
He walks around with senators and judges in his pocket like people do dimes and nickels. Yeah.
I looked this up, by the way, just 'cause I was curious. $10,000 in today's money is $150,000.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good offer to fucking get the guy. And to
what
think
has
that
inflation done to us? Oh my god.
There's just more things to buy now. Be
Let's
fair.
not lament.
There's a lot more. Yeah.
But yeah, the fucking Woltz's whole reason he
Woltz,
wouldn't hire that dude is because
he ruined talent that he invested a lot of time and money in.
Yeah, and by ruined talent, he means like some chick that he had working there like fell in love with the guy, right?
Impregnated is usually what ruined means.
Yeah.
Ah.
Like her showbiz career is fucking done. Like,
Yeah. Well, should have taken the money. Should have taken the money, Toombs. Should have taken the money.
Yeah. I mean, no, please.
I was going to answer your question from earlier.
Yeah.
For me, I think what I've noticed this time around that I hadn't noticed before is how tired this movie made me feel about 3/4 in. Not tired like bored, but tired like I've been stressed for 2.5 hours and I know this story. Like, I just, like, there's no guarantees of safety for the characters you care about, you know, when you get invested in their story, and there just keeps being other things that happen that are horribly unsafe, and, you know, just all these different things going on. So I noticed for myself, well, every time this movie plays, I'm 100% invested. Every time I sit and I watch, every time I see this movie on anywhere, sitting and just watching the whole thing, I get almost like a little bit of an emotional exhaustion from feeling tense for so long, even though I know the story.
Yeah. The only thing I was really familiar with of Godfather 2 was that Al Pacino was in it. So my understanding was that character would survive to the second movie. But aside from that, very quickly felt the same sort of absence of plot armor around
Everybody.
Almost right away. People like what I because I hadn't seen the movie before, I was like, oh shit, they killed Marlon Brando 30-45 minutes in. That's I didn't think they would do that. Of course he's not dead, but it certainly appears that way straight away.
It does.
And they also did a really unique thing, maybe it's not unique, but it's just good filmmaking, where after that scene, I'm pretty sure the exact following scene is Michael walking with Kate.
It is.
And it's this like pointing, you know. And it's like, okay, now start looking this way, because that's where we're going to start. The focus is going to be on Michael now. Very subtle, just scene change application of that, but I really enjoyed it.
They make you go through the thing. They make you go through it like a participant too. Like, as Michael's far away, it's like he calls, is he alive? Don't know. Some people are saying he's dead. We haven't found out yet.
Yeah.
You know, which is like in real life, especially back before cell phones are a thing, like that's a real situation. You know, somebody who's with them going to the hospital has to stop to tell somebody else, or the information is just not available.
Yeah, this movie becomes just more uncanny, I think is the appropriate word as time goes on, just because of the technological gulf in between the moment 1945 and what they're trying, you know, and us watching it now in 2023. Just thinking about the fact that, you know, a whole 12 hours can go by where something happens to a relative, and people aren't just blowing you up about the fact that they are hurt. You know, like, you have to find out, because it just so happens that, you know, your family is well connected enough that you're in the newspaper, like, right then and there. Like,
absolutely.
Like, how many days did it? I mean, I've always wondered this. Like, how many days was it from when Vito got shot to Michael walking out of that movie theater and seeing that newspaper? Right? Like, it had to have been at least one. I mean, like, I don't think newspapers printed that fast back in the day, did they?
Right.
Like,
yeah, good point. It probably was at least the next day.
Yeah, like,
at the very least.
Yeah, because somebody has to find out the information to report on it, get some details, write it, and then get it printed.
It's funny to say we were looking for you. Like, you know, like, where were you at? Like, And then he said, I talked to Tom. I asked Tom to, you know, but that was like, I think the day before. No, it was the same day, wasn't it? Because, like, Tom gets out of that store and then he gets stopped by Palazzo and he gets put in the van and taken away. And then, like, 6 hours later, Palazzo's like, your godfather is dead. Take this message to Sonny and tell him, you know, take our deal so we can stop the bloodshed.
Yeah.
So within 6 hours, right? Like, yeah. So I guess that kind of makes sense. You know, if the assassination happens at like 10 in the morning, right?
Yeah.
By noon, someone's printing something. So by the evening paper, it hits the stand.
Sure.
He's walking out. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, no, that actually makes perfect sense. It's
a lot
just
more urgency on newspapers back then.
yeah.
Only source of news.
Yeah, I mean, just goes to show how loosey goosey this movie is when it comes to like giving you any sort of pointers when it comes to how much time has gone by.
This is one of your things, though, right? Like, I feel like this has been a criticism of yours for some other movies, is, like, I don't need you to explain the whole thing to me. Like, let me piece it together. And this movie absolutely does that. Like, there was a couple times, again, knowing the story in this movie that I didn't quite remember something. And I'm like, I guess I have to just wait to find out, because they haven't shared enough information with me yet.
I felt completely lost for the first 20-ish minutes because I'm like, who, Salah, what, which one's Mike?
They just machine gun names at you. And
And
people come to the wedding and you see that person's important to the story because, you know, the Godfather's watching them or whatever, and you're like,
I guess I'll keep my eyes.
keep an eye on them. Like,
I'm trying to pay attention. I really am. And it's not even like, yeah, like you said, it was just really a lot of like rapid fire names and some little bits of exposition, like here and there of like the time and the place, the city, 1946, you know. But otherwise, nothing abnormal, which is making me think about, and we haven't watched it yet. I know it's coming soon because Dune 2, the next Dune movie, is coming out soon. But it's something that you struggled with quite a bit when we watched it the first time, because they just blitz straight on through an entire like ecosystem of lore by giving you little bits and pieces of like, here's a word, here's a phrase, we're moving the story along, so just keep up.
I found that annoying with Dune, mostly because it's like, it's a make-believe universe.
Yeah.
Like, I don't have enough, like, history lessons
Yeah,
and
I don't give a
cultural
shit.
know-how.
Yeah.
Like, if I'm not familiar, and, like, loosely familiar with Dune, you know, I've seen a little, like, I've seen an older version a long time ago, and trying to just catch back up, I'm like, I feel like they're putting me through culture shock. Like,
Yeah.
explain a little.
Yeah, so it was weird that it was so difficult for me. Like, in retrospect, I'm just thinking, like, I don't know why that was so hard. And maybe it is just due to the nature of it is really fast, and they're not waiting around for you to, like, really piece it together. Yeah, we got to move the 3-hour film along. So, yeah.
I think, like, I mean, I also think that the movie really does want you to watch it more than once. I mean,
Yeah.
like, it's a situation that you will certainly feel wiser the second time, you know, and every subsequent time you watch it, you will feel like you're just more in on the whole thing as it happens.
Yeah.
This movie moves so quickly sometimes that, and I was young, so possibly things that adults don't miss so badly, but like I know that for when I watched it when I was young, for like the scene that Sonny dies, because I like didn't have a really good recognition of the characters yet, I thought it was Carlo. And I was like, oh, they must have sent like a bunch of guys, you know? And then my next watch through, I was like, oh, yeah, that sucks. Like, I totally misunderstood that.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised at the level of violence in the movie. I mean, I knew it was going to be a mob movie, but for like a 1972 film, it's quite a lot of murders, some pretty visceral deaths.
There's a lot of bullets in the head.
Yeah.
A lot of bullets in the head.
The garroting was a very visceral thing to watch.
There's 2 of those, too.
Yeah. Surprising. And also, like, pretty tastefully done, I guess I would say. Like, I didn't ever feel, like, grossed out. There's no, like, nothing close to Tarantino level, obviously, but...
But it is still uncomfortable.
Yeah.
In a way that it should be.
Yeah.
And I mean, they make you comfortable with the murders too, right? Because I mean,
Jose's like, I feel very comfortable with the murders.
Like, kill that guy. Absolutely. Yeah.
No, yeah, not only like not only morally, but like aesthetically too. Like when it comes to like say when they kill Paulie, right? And it's like they go for that drive, like they're going through like the. I remember when I was a teenager and I had been watching this movie quite a lot. I had I had the screen, like the wall, like the wallpaper of like the car, like right when it pulls up on like that wheat field, you know, and it's just the car with the
wide
wheat
shot,
field. Yeah, with the wide shot of the car with
Yeah.
the wheat field. I was like, oh, that just always looks so nice, you
It
know.
does. Yeah, it's well filmed.
Yeah, like, yeah, just classy death, you know, which I would imagine.
It was like humane, almost in case.
Yeah, which I would imagine is probably a trick that the directors wanted to pull on people, in the sense that, like, how, you know, given context, even things as like universally considered gruesome and like unsavory, such as death, can, you know, be given a much, you know, more positive light, more, you know, even artistic consideration to how one does it. You know, it's like,
Did you, when you first saw it, did you guys get the impression that he was about to be whacked there in the field?
yeah, because Sonny said so. I mean,
Yeah.
Sonny said he didn't want him anymore.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
so
I was just wondering if it came as a surprise due to the nature of the shot itself, because it's so out of the way. You know, it's very peaceful surroundings.
For me, it was like the combination of the shot, and also like two other guys on the team had referenced liking Polly, so it was like it made it like a sad thing for me a little bit.
another nice thing about
Like,
this
I
movie
wanted
is
not.
the fact that it leaves, even to this day, so much ambiguity about those about those kind of spots, like Polly, right? Like, they like, you never really know whether he really did betray the Godfather. Like,
Yeah.
I've watched this movie plenty of times, and they give you that small characterization of Polly when he's like in like the wedding, and he's like looking at like the bag of money, and he's like, oh, if this was anybody else's wedding, you know.
Yeah.
Right.
But the movie never makes it 100% clear, like with other deaths, right? That this individual 100% deserved it. It was just, it was one of Sonny, as the new Don's, Sonny's one of his hasty like responses to what was happening. He's like, this guy, you know, this is weird. Like, he's been gone how many times now? You're like,
Yeah.
I might have missed something, but I never interpreted that as like they thought he was involved. Though, like, looking back on it, I can totally see how that would be the interpretation, especially with the reference to his behavior at the wedding in the beginning. But I interpreted it as, like, he's basically hired muscle. He's not reliable, and that almost got the Godfather killed.
yeah, no.
Like, he's got to go.
Yeah, no, I never read it as a punishment. I always read it as an outing of a snitch. Like, yeah, I always read it as he wasn't there because he was in on the Godfather needing to be whacked, and Fredo being the only one there, you know, to protect him.
Right.
That's the beauty about the movie, and in that encapsulation is the fact that you never really know whether they were right in their suspicion. It's just that everything kind of points in that direction, and it really puts you in the position of a mafioso, of like, what other choice do you have? I mean, like, if all of your thoughts bring you to the concept that this guy might be the loose end that is actively getting your fucking father murdered, and not only your father murdered, but the dawn of your whole organization, you really want to keep taking that chance, you know, on this guy?
Ooh, this is an interesting juxtaposition to Departed. Jack Nicholson's character
yes.
and Leo's character,
Mm-hmm.
right? This is the same situation, sort of, just as really small encapsulated part of the film.
No, for sure.
But
I can only imagine that Scorsese has, you know, The Godfather, every single frame of The Godfather, and one of his. I'm glad you really liked the movie, man. I mean, like, I was a little afraid that perhaps time would have jaded you to the movie just because of the fact that you've been lightly pelted by it, essentially your entire life, even if you know, didn't see the full snowball, coming at you at it, you know. But
I was a little afraid going into it, honestly, because I am jaded. I watch movies today that are made today that other people enjoy that I think are crap.
Right.
And I don't know if it's because it actually is crap or if it's too much cynicism. Maybe it's a little of both. I don't know. But I was reminded of again a Family Guy joke before we started, where they're all drowning somewhere, the whole family, and Peter goes, "I don't really care for the Godfather." And they're all like, "What?" He's like, "Didn't care for it."
Yep. What is it that he says? Oh my gosh! It like overasserts itself.
Yeah,
or something.
I think that is it. It overasserts itself. What does that even mean? But yes, I was afraid. And then by minute 3 of the film, no longer afraid. Nope.
Hell yeah!
It set itself up. It set itself up beautifully.
Yeah.
Right away. Here's what's going on with just in what's that, in media res? Is that what they call it?
Res.
In medias res. Like we're just gonna start you off here. Mm-hmm. So
I believe in America.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Very powerful speech, very powerful story. A really nice exposition. By the time we got to Michael enacting the hit on Sollozzo and McCluskey, I don't know if I had watched some film critique of just this shot alone, but him going to the bathroom and coming back with the gun, and how you hear that background noise raise and raise with the tension,
train, yeah.
As the vocals die out. Oh, my goodness, yeah. So at that point in the movie, I was like,
I've always wondered, is that even real? You know, like, is that train going by even real, or is that just like the train of thought inside of Michael's head just overtaking him, and he's like, this is the moment now, you know, like, because and from a practical perspective, it makes sense. Yeah, let's kill him when the train is at its loudest, in order to be able to, like, you know, muffle the sound, you know. But at the same time, if you look at the locale of the restaurant, it isn't like over a bridge or anything like that, so you really wouldn't hear like a train that loudly on top of it, you know. It's like it really is just like the internal train of Michael just being like, no, we gotta take it, we're like, this is the moment now, like.
Yeah, and it like that same moment encapsulated what I think is another notch somewhere on that hero story, right? Of like you said, Michael, and especially in the beginning of the film, is not a bloodthirsty guy, does not want to be involved in the family business. We see him coming back from war, and so maybe we can assume that he had to deal with some death as like in fighting the war and stuff like that, but he never seems bloodthirsty or anything like that. And then there is that, like you say, this train of internal dialogue and distress happening behind his eyes as you watch him look around the restaurant and look up at Sollozzo and like look down into the side, and like they're chatting amongst themselves. He's not really listening, and it really was like a good way to emphasize another one of those turning points in Michael's story. Mm-hmm. Very cool scene.
Yeah, like the movie does a great job of letting you understand that, by the by, he's the main character, but no one then becomes unimportant because of the fact that he's slowly but surely taking more center stage in the movie. You know, like it's always an ensemble piece.
Yeah.
Just that as time goes on, there are just less people in the spotlight because, you know, things are happening.
Dying.
Yeah, people are dying. Yeah, because of the murder. And literally because a decade goes by. I mean, like, you know, people become incapacitated. They just, you know, they lose that heat that they had, you know, like people just are not the same after a whole decade of existence.
Yeah.
Very true.
It was, very, very good. And yeah, it is really unfortunate that we don't get to watch. I mean, that you haven't seen The Godfather Part 2, because that movie does do a really good job of giving a light prequel to Michael before he goes off into the war.
Oh, cool.
And, you know,
okay.
It's very small. It's a small sprinkling, but
yeah,
it is in there. And I mean, he is just. It's all really in the eyes. Pacino did such a good job of like making himself look more and more just dead to the moment as like the movie went on. You know,
Oh, yeah.
like I don't want my emotions wrapped up into it, because then it becomes personal, and then if it becomes personal, then it becomes a moral problem.
Right.
And I don't want this to be a moral problem. This is a transactional
Business,
problem.
yeah.
Things are always easiest when they're transactional. Yeah, it's quite the slippery slope that he gets himself into, for sure.
Yeah, there's very much, I can see it like on the horizon, the shadow of like heavy as the head that wears the crown kind of thing. Which is, yeah, so the second one, okay, I've heard that there's a lot of differing opinion on this. Have you seen the second and the third one?
Not recently enough that I have a good enough memory of them.
But
I watched the second one last year with Kimmy.
okay,
It's been a couple of years since I've seen the third one, but I've seen it a lot of times.
is it better than? Equal to?
Second one, in my opinion, is equal to the first. Like not having what's it called, Marlon Brando in it does bring it down a little bit, because he did such a good job.
So good.
Yeah, but that's pretty much, it's like, it's just by that loss that the second one doesn't have just like all of the qualities that the first one did. But
Okay.
I mean, like, it stands on its own really, really well. And then the third one is just kind of a train wreck.
Really?
It really is, yeah. I mean, like, too much time goes by is the problem. Like, by the time the third one happens, Michael is as old as
Vito
is.
Right.
Not to spoil the second one for you to figure out whether he died, you know, like, because there's plenty of instances that where Michael's life is in danger, you know.
I've seen the covers of the film.
Right,
like,
right.
I know that Pacino's in them. Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Because, again, Michael is he is the Godfather that they're talking about.
Right.
You know.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. In the third one, too much time goes by. None of the original cast is there anymore. You know, and it's like, it's literally brand new people's problems. And the issue with that just comes from the fact that the tropes come back, you know, but with new people. And it's just difficult to care twice in a row.
For
like
the same.
You
Yeah.
can't stand where
Which
they
is
stood.
why, things like that just showcase why humans should never be immortal, right? Because it's like you can only ever care about an instance like that once. Like, anytime after that, you just become too cynical and just too, you know, like, I've seen this episode play out one time too many times already.
Well, and it comes down to which was better too. Like,
Oh,
don't
gosh, that's true,
compete
too,
with the
yeah.
first one.
Yeah,
that's
You're gonna
true, too.
lose.
Yeah, because even if the problems are exactly the same, the execution won't be, you know. Like,
Right. Yeah, I noticed. I said as much. Like, as soon as we started the movie, probably after Vito got shot, because for some reason I've seen that scene before, and I don't know how many different places. But this must be one of those films, truly one of those films, that you could recreate shot for shot with other pieces of media.
Oh, 100%.
And get like almost as close as the original runtime, the original dialogue. Like, I would not be surprised if somebody has done that.
Yeah. If we were any type of real YouTubers, we would be actively be doing that right now.
It's so long.
I don't want to do that.
I don't want to do
movie?
it.
Go through all that shit. Yeah.
It would mostly just be Family Guy episodes.
Yeah, somebody did that with Star Wars, and 80% of it was Family Guy.
Just Family Guy. Yeah. I mean, they redid the whole New Hope just
Yeah.
in that one little micro movie that they did. So, I mean, but seriously, I mean, it makes sense. I mean, if you're as old as Seth MacFarlane, right, and it's like you have the money and the opportunity, it's like, what do you do? I mean, you give homage to the bangers, you know, like.
Well, what got you here?
Yeah.
Paying tribute to the shoulders of all those giants that I've been walking across.
Yep, and it's like, and the best he can ever do is just try to do a, you know, like as close to a parody recreation of the gravity of the moments that he's like trying to convey.
Important bits, yeah. Exactly.
Because I mean, like I'm thinking about like all like the Family Guy like recreations, you know, and they never do like a funny one. Like it's always just almost a 1-to-1.
Yeah. A little too spot on. Yeah, with like a joke mixed in. Yeah, exactly. Well, we haven't gotten the ratings yet, so we could
No, it's
take
perfect.
a fourth in for. We're not live or anything.
Yeah.
It's just,
Oh, great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're loosey goosey right now. Ah, yeah. Any questions about the story? Think you if you feel like you got it on the first go around?
I think so. I will definitely watch it again.
Sweet. Lucky
Just
man.
because I feel like it deserves it. Yeah. I think it deserves the second watch.
It's an excellent movie.
It's fantastic.
I've watched it
no
a ton
questions.
of times, and I'm still like,
It's
I'll
so-
watch it again.
Yeah.
For
It's
sure.
so festive too. Like the movie does such a good job of putting you in the atmosphere of the moment, right? Like you go through the first scene, Buenos Aires, very gravity feeling right away. Like it pulls you in. Okay, this guy asking for a favor from a mob boss right away, and it's like
in
and then-
desperation.
and in desperation, and slowly but surely, the scene reveals the fact that this isn't just happening in some back alleyway or anything. Like it's happening in the middle of a very, very festive moment.
Yeah.
You know, like
Yep.
they open the door and you know, like that's like the universe, like releases itself so slowly from such a quiet moment because the close-in of Buenos Aires is like so tight at the beginning and then
Yeah.
slowly pans out to behind the desk of Vito, and then flips over to him, gives you the whole office, then it squeezes back in, lets him out, and then at that point you're also released with Buenos Aires out into the
Yeah.
party.
Yeah.
I gotta say, the kitten he's playing with during that part of the
Oh, it's
movie
beautiful!
stole the
Oh,
show.
such a beautiful boy.
I've heard a lot of,
Beautiful
Really bad stories about Marlon Brando. At least that cat didn't.
Yeah, I can't love them.
kitten. I love
It's like take them from me. He had to like put them down. It's like
And I like at the beginning in the wedding scene, they really set the stage for, like, particularly, I don't even remember like which one of their guys it was, but he was like dancing at the wedding, and then he talked to Polly briefly, and he was like
Clemenza.
Clemenza,
The
yeah,
big fat Clemenza.
yeah, fat Clemenza. That's right. That's what they call him.
That's how you remember. It's the fat one.
But he talked to Polly briefly, and then he was like, "All right, back to work," and
Yeah,
it
it's like-
just really set the stage for like, this isn't just a business. This is all friends and family.
Yeah, walk the
We
neighborhood.
celebrate together.
Yeah, just man, like it would be so something else to be able to like zap my brain and go back to 1972 and watch this movie.
Fresh,
like
yeah.
New-
yeah,
Ooh.
yeah, exactly. Like watching like the scene where like the FBI agents are like walking through like the cars and like taking pictures of all the license plates and stuff like that. Like all of that stuff feels so rudimentary now, knowing about like mafia movies and of course like that, like all of the government is like on top of you kind of situation. But like all of that stuff was very new back then.
Yeah.
Like the concept of the government really cracking down on organized crime was a very
Just
new thing at that
Yeah.
very moment. Because beforehand, that was supposed to not even be a thing. Like it was, like there was active propaganda to keep you from believing that La Cosa
Right.
Nostra was even a real, even a real thing. No, that's just a stereotype against Italian Americans.
Right.
We would never.
Yeah.
We would never. Yeah, it's interesting that like it makes you wonder how many degrees separated from these families do you have to be before like you don't have an option. Like if the police don't help you, like how many degrees away are you still going to one of these families? Like are they secondary to the system?
Yeah. It's interesting just in the sense that from what we know about The Godfather Part 2, not to jump too far from it, right? But Vito is he is an immigrant from Sicily to the United States,
Yep.
right? His children are the first ones born in America. So Buenos Aires, if he is going to be a general representation of the community, right? I can only imagine that he also it says it. He is also from the old country. He comes here. He had his daughter, raised her in the American fashion, didn't protest when she went out to the movies and stuff like that, right? So like they literally all are just one cadre coming in all at the same time. You know, like it's all one encapsulation of a moment, essentially, of like that 1910s, 1920s deep immigration of Italians.
Yeah, like the Sicilian community. Because that's one thing I noticed at the place where the Don gets shot too. Is it's like it looks like an Italian market or like a Sicilian market. It looks like this is a community that these people live in and thrive in.
Yeah.
Yep. Like at this point because the movie happened in 1946, right? So it's been 30 years since. Well, yeah, it's been at this point. It's been probably 50 years since they've fully made their foothold. You know,
Right.
so it's like at this point a whole generation and a half's worth of people have gone by, understanding that hey, you have a big problem. Go speak to, Don Corleone. Like,
Right. Yeah. For that.
I guess it's hard. I mean, like, shit, that's another big thing about like movies, older movies like this is like people used to age so much harder back in the day. Like,
It's rough.
yeah, like.
It's very. I think they were all smoking cigarettes all the time. Right?
No doubt. I mean,
a
like
lot
you
of
look at
cigarette
Marlon
smoking in the
Brando's
movie.
face and it's leathery. Like,
Well, I think a lot of that was makeup.
make.
I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure. No, I think that's because I know his like cheek inserts were like special
jowls,
stuff.
like,
yeah.
Yeah.
And I think he had additional like skin texture stuff that they
Okay.
did to him too.
Okay, thank goodness.
Because I think he was pretty young when he
He's
made that
airbrushed
movie.
and other things. I gotta like see.
But like even if he was young, even if he was 30 something, he probably looked 40 something.
No, he had to have been in his 50s because I mean,
Brando?
yeah, because I would imagine Pacino was probably getting into his 30s, if not in his 30s.
That's true.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
a pretty textured looking guy.
Is he?
Yeah, I think he is. Young even.
Yeah.
Like this.
Is he looking at the streetcar named Desire?
Like look at these bumps and
That's
stuff.
what I
on
remember
his
the
face.
young him from.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right, good point. Maybe
Yeah.
it was a
I don't
little
think
haggard.
they textured his skin.
My son.
I don't even know how you
he's
do
looking
that.
for Superman's father.
My goodness. Yeah, I'm pumped for the second one, man.
Hell yeah.
Very
Thank
excited.
goodness. Thank goodness.
It'll be fun.
Let's do 2001, and then we'll do part 4. God.
Part two.
We're gonna have to carve out a date for 2001. That's a long movie.
Is it? How long is it?
Like 5 hours.
No.
No.
I think it's long.
I think it's 3-ish. Might be
It's
two.
not 4.
What?
No. It's around 3. But yes, Godfather Part 2. Yes, 2001. And we also have to watch Dune when the second one finally drops, because that is like what you experienced watching Alien times 10.
I must be mixing this up
For
with
sci-fi.
something else. This is only 2 hours and 20 minutes.
Ooh,
I don't know why
we can
I
get
thought
we can
that.
get past. We can do that easy.
Even
Yeah.
shorter.
Yeah.
Nice.
Nice. You got a book.
Clockwork Orange is the only movie I know that's like over 4 hours long, I think.
Is it really?
No, is it?
That's
Clockwork Orange like
No, it's
4 hours long?
Gone with the Wind is like
I don't
5
believe that
something.
is. Gone with the Wind is that long, I believe, because that
Gone with the Wind is.
is massive. And
We
at
don't
the
need
end,
to
they
watch
don't give a
Clockwork
damn.
Orange for our podcast.
Oh,
I
it's
wasn't-
Only, it's only 2 hours. So
Yeah, I was like, no way.
That movie just feels long.
Yeah. There's a couple scenes that feel particularly
It's
too
that touch
long.
of the hyper.
Have I been here for 4 hours?
Yeah.
Sorry to jump in, but then I also did Google Marlon Brando was 47 when
That makes
Okay.
sense. Yeah.
they
Yeah.
filmed Godfather.
Pacino's like 30.
Yeah.
This is good. It's like podcasts
No,
where they
then-
have the person
then
with the
they
laptop.
yeah.
Can I
Thank you,
spit
Jamie.
facts?
Yeah, thank you, Jamie. Yeah.
Pull that up.
Happy to do it.
Yeah.
Ratings?
I think so. I mean, like, the funny thing about a movie this good is the fact that it doesn't leave a lot to speak about.
It speaks for
Us-
itself. Right?
Yeah. Doesn't leave a lot of room for introspection because goddamn, they got it figured out like like 50 years ago.
Yeah. Somehow.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and somehow people still drop the ball so hard today. I'm just bewildered.
I
by
would
how
imagine
good.
this is one of those instances where it must be so difficult to want to be creative when you have such exemplary examples
Right.
of how to do it right.
Yeah.
Because it's like you can't just copy The Godfather, right? It's like you like that's the issue with art, is the fact that it isn't as though it's some formula that okay, now that we know how to beep and boop it all the way through it, like we can just keep redoing like this pace over and over again, just put a new paint like new coat of paint on top of whatever it is that you want to do. So because of that, it's like I would imagine that you watch this movie as a desiring creative, and like you're like, okay, well fuck, like they did that. Like where am I left with?
Yeah, you
like,
hold yours
what
up
do
and
I
you're
do?
like, oh, I'm not putting that up there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you're standing on top of old gods that like won't die. Like they just they just refuse to give up their space because they did such a good job the first time.
Yeah.
Like in The Departed is a really good movie to put in line with this one in the American version. At least that's the only one we've seen, right? But even then, it's like, holy shit, that's also that's a recreation of another movie already that existed. So it's like it's already been a situation where they're rinsing through and recontextualizing for an audience for like and localizing for an audience, so then that audience can enjoy it even more, right? Like this movie didn't do that. Like this movie was 100% OC. Like OC in terms of the fact that it was a book first, popped into
Right. The first iteration of the book.
It could have easily been a boring movie, though.
Like,
they knocked it out of the park.
When I was a little kid, before I watched it, I thought it was gonna be a boring movie. Like,
I did too.
Like nothing about
3
it.
hours.
Nothing about it makes you think that it's going to be this mind-blowing interpersonal epic. Like.
I had one of those things where I was just like a kid with family visiting, like rolling through the living spaces, and you just kind of like sit down on the floor, like, and then watch a
I can't believe that.
movie.
Yeah, like the adults are letting me watch this. Oh, well, I will not talk.
I'm gonna keep my presence
Yeah.
minimally.
I'm taking in this movie just fine. Yeah.
It's all good.
Just happy to be
It's all
here.
good.
I had to kill Palazzo too. I understand.
What's up, fellow
Yeah.
adults?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point though you made at the beginning of this, is like that you know what they're talking about remaking the Potter films. And we have all been subject to 100 different remakes throughout our lifetime. Nobody's ever going to remake The Godfather. You can't, right? Like even if
someone's gonna someday.
it left copyright protection or whatever, and like you are able to you can't go, I'm gonna make The Godfather today with new actors and tell the same story, but
I never even thought about that.
like I'm gonna put my finger on it. Nobody's even like, no, I'm not putting that. Nobody's touching that pie.
Yeah.
It's a work of art.
Yeah,
You would have to be
who wants that
real
target on their back?
confident.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you'd fail before you even started. Yeah.
Yeah, because you
You
can't.
look foolish if
I
you
mean-
make it, and it's just anywhere but way better.
Yeah, because it's a timepiece, right? Because it's like you can't transplant the ideas of that movie to the future, because
Right.
it's like our laws, everything about what allows them to operate in the way that they do is no longer feasible. Like,
Yeah, it doesn't translate.
Also, there's like a lot of racism that you probably couldn't pull off with a brand new
just
movie today.
there's a chef's kiss worth of racism.
I learned
it's what Dave
slurs,
Chappelle would
yeah.
it's what Dave Chappelle would have called just cooked to perfection. That level of racism.
Yeah, subtle but very easygoing racism too. We're just
It was very casual to the 1940s moment that they were trying to show off, and a lot of it was Italian American based.
Yeah.
Like that's how people used to speak about us, kind of doing
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah.
It's harder to take seriously, I think, just because I've never been exposed to racism of like Italian people. I feel like that's very likely just like what I've been exposed to. I'm sure it's like still out there, but I feel like so much more now There's just like people to fall in like the white
Yeah, because
category.
they're just white people.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like,
Yeah.
but again, they in that very instance were the immigrants. Like they were the very first generation immigrants from an immigrant father who was a criminal.
Yeah.
You know. So yeah, I mean, it hits entirely different in that way.
Yep. I'm sure, especially if you had moved to this country, I mean, no one seems to like sweat it, of course, because it's mob family, but like, if your like generation had come here.
You know, I wonder too,
Be
right? Like this
sucky.
movie made in the 70s is representing 30 years in the past, in the 40s, right? So it's like if you as an individual in the 70s are watching this movie, you're listening to them saying all those racial slurs. If you're also doing a little bit of cringing on that very moment too, because I mean, it's been 30 years since that kind of language was essentially like allowed, you know what I mean? In more like casual comment, like, so it's like this movie has always been trying to be a little politically correct relative to its time, right? Because it's showing the ignorances of how people back in the 40s used to like,
Right.
you know.
Yeah, it's pretty progressive, but Hollywood has always been like that too.
Right, yeah.
Which is
I mean, what's always about introspecting, you know, for, you know, for gems like this, and,
Yeah.
you know, but like, well, I mean, people in the past will always look silly in some way, like, you know, like.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, I learned a lot of new slurs, so that's good.
Oh, are you
Put that in my
excited to
back
use
pocket.
them?
In the privacy of my own home.
No, you
No,
will
I'm
not.
just-
Those Dagos, whatever that
Yeah,
means.
a Goomba. That's kind of funny to me. 'Cause-
You never,
just say
you
that.
never heard Goomba before?
No, I thought that was the little brown
It
thing in
is.
Mario.
It is.
Yeah. Hey, wait, are the brown things in Mario like a really racist thing that I didn't even know about?
Yeah.
Mario's Italian,
Yeah?
so
Now
he's
you're putting one and one together.
he's stomping out
The
What?
Goombas.
the ethnic slur.
No.
He's a force for
That's
progressivism.
so lame. That can't be.
Mario is
Mario's woke. You heard it here first.
yeah, Mario's super woke. Dude.
Or a race trader.
Ain't no hate speech up in the Mushroom Kingdom.
Yeah.
Get out.
Well, I
of
mean,
here.
if he's stomping fellow Goombas, I mean, like, Goombas are supposed to be Italians.
Well, he's stopping the ones that call themselves Goombas. He's like, no more of that. Now we're Italian Americans.
I don't think they can talk.
They can in Super Mario RPG: Legend of the Seven Stars, soon to be released on
That
the
they
Nintendo
certainly
Switch.
can.
I feel like that's okay.
It's expanded universe stuff,
Yeah.
right? It's
Yeah.
It's not canon, but
maybe it is. No, it's probably not. I don't. Wait, is there any canon Mario?
yeah.
There-
The whole third game is a play.
Propaganda by the Mushroom.
That's what it is. These are all propaganda pieces. What a fucking rabbit hole.
Oh, man.
So yeah, no secrets for me, man. That's I don't. We can't rate things more than 5 stars, so I'll stick right there. With my explanation for why it's a 5 stars is the past hour and 20 minutes. So
Is now you're finally caught up with culture as a
yeah,
whole.
and I can call myself a cinephile and not feel like a dirty little liar when I do it.
Dirty little
A
liar.
dirty little fibber, a big phony. Yeah.
Fibber.
You know what always bugged me when I was young, like when I was telling you how I was going through like top 50 IMDb movies, like trying to like really get myself caught up with stuff. How when The Dark Knight came out, because of like the way that voting happened, like it just blew past everything and started like you know, hugging essentially like The Godfather Part 1 and 2 in terms of like where it was at. And I remember watching The Dark Knight, and as much as I liked that, I didn't feel, you know what I mean, like that that presence of what it was like trying to convey in that way. And maybe it's because it's a, you know, even though Batman is more grounded as a superhero, I mean, it's still just a fantastical situation,
Very
you
much
know,
so,
like
yeah.
like this like
You,
man,
you
I
mean
see-
anytime Heath Ledger wasn't on screen?
Yeah,
You didn't
exactly.
feel the
no, exactly, yeah.
juice.
It's just bored,
fair.
yeah.
yeah.
Lightly bored, yeah. I think it's been enough time where I can be honest about that.
Yeah, yeah, that's fair. You'll get no judgment in this house.
Yeah, this whole
Not on camera,
the whole robbing that Asian businessman situation at the beginning was just so boring.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, yeah, no, 5 out of 5 stars for me. I'm so happy that we managed to be able to.
Your phone is buzzing
Get
on
in
the
the
table.
bag.
You should do something about that.
That's my mom.
Yeah, but it might be picking up on the microphone.
Oh.
What I'm saying.
It shouldn't on this one anyway, because it's got this nice spring thing.
Hmm.
Cool.
Yeah, that's what that's for. Good point.
Sweet.
It will come up in the mic. Beautiful. You're still, you like this movie still? No.
This is the one that broke the camel's back.
No more.
No, I think the same. This movie for me is definitely a 5. The primary reasons for that are like I have a hard time sitting down and paying full attention to anything, especially just quickly without effort. And this movie just has a commanding presence. Like as soon as it starts, you're in. And that's the reason that I like horror movies so much, which is something we do pretty regularly on this podcast, is because it's crazy enough to get my attention, and this movie does that without having to do anything super, super insane or like have me like waiting to be afraid of something. Really hard thing to do. And the other thing is, it's so hard to find a movie with perfect pacing that keeps you equally engaged throughout the entire movie. I never get bored. I never stop paying attention. I don't get distracted during this movie. It's excellent.
Yeah, they never go into tangents. That's the thing mostly about it, is the fact that then you never fall into a moment where it feels like a tangent, aside from perhaps the Apollonia thing, right? Where it's like, that might be the only instance, in my personal opinion, where you feel perhaps that the movie is kind of nebulous and where, you know, but at the same time, even that nebulousness is well in line with Michael's current hero's journey position of it, right? It's like, he did it right by his family, you know, and at this point in time, he's trying to figure out where is he going to pivot once he's finally allowed to come back to his country, you know. He wants to be able to come back with this new wife, you know, make her a good American wife, whatever it is that they're trying to do with each other, you know. That doesn't work. So love won't work. So, you know, I have to be a transactional person now. Kate, get in the car.
Have my children.
Yeah.
Let's go. Yeah.
Yeah, it's unfortunate how circumstance builds a person in that way, right? It's like, that's another really big thing that Michael's story really showcases, is the fact that he doesn't really get a choice at the end of it all, because I mean, like, he can't run away. Yeah, he can't choose to do something else.
Right.
I mean, that's not true. One can always choose, but his own personality, essentially. I mean, he's pretty much stuck because of his personality traits. Like, he can't get out of it at this point.
It really came down to his father. I think he did what he needed to do to keep his father alive, and that like completely pivoted the direction of his life.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Because he would have died without him there that night.
Oh, 100%. Yep. And then Sonny would have become Dawn, and then everything would have just fallen apart.
Gone to shit.
Corleone family would have disappeared.
Would have disappeared, yeah, within 5 years,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. Very cool.
Yep. And then it's interesting because then The Godfather Part 2 shows you that, yes, Michael worked. I mean, it worked out for Michael, but at what cost? You know, was it worth it? You know,
Yes,
I mean, like,
that I could see. Yep,
Yeah.
right at the end of that movie, I'm like, that's a whole big story to be told about that next. So,
Yep.
very excited.
It's like, yeah, now you get to reap the rewards of all of the situation.
I mean, the big chair is yours, pretty much.
Yeah.
Yep.
Whether you want it or not.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well.
Great movie. Great pick.
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful. Wonderful job.
Jose, did you do your rating?
Oh, yeah. 5 out of 5.
Yeah. He's a solid 5-er.
Yeah.
Solid 5.
It's wonderful. Well, I'm really glad that we managed to finally break the curse. 6 months later, but we'll hopefully, I mean, now Kimmy and I aren't going through a big major transition, and we hopefully won't be anytime soon, so now we can finally actually begin getting into a more solid pace and schedule, especially now that we live like literally half the time that it takes to get to your house
So
before.
much better.
Yeah.
Yep.
A little more than half, even.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Beautiful.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, one can only hope that things will work out well, just like Michael did.
To be continued.
Yeah. Close the door.
Have
Awesome.
somebody close the door for us.
Yeah.
Yeah, so expect more from the Lethal Crew in the future, I guess. And till next
Have
time.
a good day and a good night.
And a good night.
Good night.